Welcome everybody. This time of year is one of my favorites. It's the period between October and December that I like to call, and I'd like to wish you all a happy Hallow Thanks Hanukkahmas. Now in the year 2030, we're also going to have Ramadan, so it will become Happy Hallow Thanks Hana Rama-mas. Now regardless of which religion you belong to and which holidays you celebrate, for me this is one of the most wonderful times of the year. In fact, there's a song called The Most Wonderful Time of the Year about the holiday season, and you're probably all familiar with it. I'm going to cover some of the lyrics, but I promise I won't sing. But the song goes like this, and I want you to think about the lyrics and tell me if anything stands out as maybe being a little bit unusual. So there'll be parties for hosting, marshmallows for toasting, caroling out in the snow, there'll be scary ghost stories, and tales of the glories of Christmases long, long ago. Now, does anything there sound like it doesn't really belong? Scary ghost stories, right? Everything else in the song, and I only covered a couple of lines, everything else in the song is joyous and celebratory, and then you have scary ghost stories. Why would people tell scary ghost stories at Christmas time? It doesn't seem to fit in. But it turns out that there's a reason for it, and that there's a long tradition of telling ghost stories at Christmas time. After all, it's no coincidence that the most famous Christmas story is also a ghost story. Or said another way, the most famous ghost story is a Christmas story. And I think you probably all know which one I'm thinking of. I see nods over here.
Yes. Christmas Carol.
Christmas Carol, right, with Ebenezer Scrooge, and we're going to come back to him. But then you may wonder, and this goes back millennia, this tradition. It stopped about 100 years ago. But then you may wonder, why do we tell ghost stories at Christmas? And the reason is, as Christianity spread across Europe, it's going back hundreds, even thousands of years, it adopted a lot of the traditions that were already existing at the time. And one of those traditions, because Christmas falls in December, the same time as the winter solstice, people had a tradition of gathering around a fire. And you might wonder why they would tell ghost stories at winter solstice. And the reason is, it's the end of the year, it's cold, it's dark, it's actually the shortest day of the year. So after the winter solstice, days start getting long again. So they'll gather around a fire, and there's no TV, there's no cell phones, so people will tell stories. And because it's the end of the year, it's a time when people traditionally think about the past year, the year that's gone by, maybe people that they've lost. They'll reflect on their own actions during the year, and a lot of us will set goals for the next year. We'll make New Year's resolutions. Ghost stories in particular call out, I think they're especially poignant, and the reason I think they're especially poignant is that ghosts are such tragic figures, right? We have the opportunity at the end of the year to remake ourselves, to set goals, to set resolutions, and then follow those. But if you're a ghost, you've made all your decisions. There's no future. You essentially have to live with any decision you've ever made because there's no opportunity for change. And if you think about the story of Ebenezer Scrooge in A Christmas Carol, he was visited by Jacob Marley, who I always want to call Bob Marley. He came to Scrooge, and he was a ghost, and he was carrying around very heavy chains, very long, heavy chains, and they were weighing him down. And every link in that chain represents guilt that he felt for not being a better steward of his fellow man, of humankind. And he came to Scrooge and he told him that he has to change or he's going to end up with the same fate. And in fact, his chain is made of bigger links and it's much, much longer than Marley's. And Scrooge didn't really take this seriously. He says, look, I've always been good at business. And Marley took great umbrage with this comment. And if you've ever seen any of the films, he kind of flies up in the air and he flies into a rage. And he says, humankind is our business. So with that, go ahead and click me. Yeah. Click. So when I reflect on the coming end of the year, and I think about changes that I'd like to make, I reflect on these stories. In fact, this is a tradition that I'm going to pick up myself and I'm going to share with my family. Now, I said it ended about 100 years ago. I'm going to take it back to the year 1842, before A Christmas Carol was written. Charles Dickens, who wrote A Christmas Carol, had written several he just had Oliver Twist about a year earlier, and it was a phenomenal success. But then he had 3 failures after that. And the fate of telling ghost stories at Christmas, the fate of Christmas itself, and Charles Dickens' future were all in mortal peril. But nothing comes back from the dead like a good ghost story. So when he wrote A Christmas Carol, it was widely received. People loved it. Donations to charities went through the roof all over the place. The tradition of Christmas was reestablished as a holiday, and people began to celebrate it more like we do today. So Christmas was saved. The telling of ghost stories went on for another 50 years after this. And Charles Dickens himself went on to write another 9 novels, including Great Expectations, David Copperfield, and A Tale of Two Cities, some very big novels. So this year, again, regardless of what religion you practice, this year I think everybody at the holiday season should reflect. Take some time to reflect and remember at all times that humanity is our business.